set, the club has released a statement that Graham Potter is gone. Somebody's daddy, somebody's father
I just lost his
has
job.
just lost his job. I don't know what he's going to tell his kids. But what do you make of the whole scenario?
Okay, it was just funny that just moving here and I just got the news, and this season is a record. 13 managers
Fired.
fired. It's never happened before. It's never happened before, and the funny.
Let me pause. Let me pause and try to interrogate you. What do you think is accounting for all of this craziness?
No one is.
I choose to brand it craziness.
It's impatience of the fans. It's this generation. It's the impatience of the fan.
13 managers.
13 managers,
fired.
and it is sad. I think it all boils down to how management of these clubs have changed. Most of the times in the olden times, it had to do with it was the community or it was the fans who were actually in charge of the club and how they did their thing. So everybody understood. But now it's a one-man club. So and the funny thing is that most of these clubs are owned by individuals. So if they bring the individual, they hire a coach and he's not performing, it's just like any entity, any business entity. He wouldn't waste time. And again, like I said, the influx of money, again, the increase in how much they buy their ticket, the increase in how much they spend going to the stadium. Now football has become a cash cow. So now the fans looking at how much they invest into their club and how little a manager would bring, and they look at how much the manager and the players take. There are a whole lot of factors. You see, if you are taking the 90s, for the 90s, when Premier League started and all of that, most of these clubs had not even tasted any success. So let's say someone like Chelsea, a team like Chelsea and the rest had not tasted success before. But now, they've tasted success before. So if a manager comes around and does not perform, it wouldn't be a difficult thing sacking him. Leicester, pre-Claudio Ranieri, they had virtually been a non-entity. But Ranieri comes and he spoils them with a Premier League title. And the next season, they sack him halfway through the season. The funny thing is that the season before, they were fighting. They were battling relegation.
Exactly.
So now, it's more or less like, one, because of the one-man teams or the one person buying the club. Two, is because of the relative successes that they've chalked. Because all of these clubs we're talking about, the Evertons and the Fulhams and the Bournemouth. What is Bournemouth? Bournemouth is a championship club that comes and goes, but because of the influx of them, and they want trophies worth whatever they've put in. So I think it's the impatience of the fans. Football now becoming strictly a business entity that nobody's ready to make losses, and among a few other things.
But what do you make of this whole brouhaha by Chelsea and the subsequent sacking of Graham Potter? I think that there are serious lessons to be learned from this whole Graham Potter episode.
Yeah.
I think that Ted Bowley and Egbad, they took off on a bad note. I think that letting Thomas Tuchel go was a bad miscalculated step. And I say this because there are not so many class managers on the market now. When you have a manager who is of the right age. I mean, recently I listened to an interview by Thomas Tuchel. He spoke about the fact that he was deeply hurt by his sacking at Chelsea.
Yeah.
And he makes a confession about the fact that he says the meeting didn't even last for 5 minutes. You understand? That's how come he was very, very exasperated, in the sense that he felt he had built a particular kind of family bond with the dressing room of the Chelsea team, and they were bent on undertaking a project. Everybody who had watched Chelsea under under Thomas Tuchel could feel that this was a club that had a sense of ambition. This was a club that had a sense of purpose. This was a club that had a sense of drive, wanted to get somewhere. And so, what do you make of this whole Potter? It's become topical all of a sudden. I mean, it's become so topical because, I mean, this wasn't part of the initial synopsis, but I mean, this is the news. This is the news.
This is the news. And with that of Porter's appointment with, as in he being appointed as the Chelsea manager, to date, if probably you ask Todd Bowley why Tuchel was sacked,
Egos.
I don't think it would be for football reasons.
No, he wasn't sacked. It must be put on record.
It would be funny.
Thomas Tuchel was not sacked
No.
for football reasons.
No.
I will attempt to give you a brief overview of what really happened with the sacking, regards the sacking of Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea. The issue is that when the American owners came in,
Yeah.
they came in at a time where Chelsea were almost undertaking preseason, and then they needed to sign some particular players. And I think that with this whole American system or North American system of running franchises,
Yes.
it's a different ball game altogether. So the owner, together with his partner, proposed that somebody like Thomas Tuchel be a part of the discussions when it comes to recruitment. And Thomas Tuchel felt that all his life being a coach, he's never handled that portfolio. So what Thomas Tuchel did was to send his agent and personal trusted aide to be a representative of him at those meetings. When that happened for a couple of occasions, he was questioned, he was called to order, and the new owners felt that this was not the way to go, because they sort of felt a bit undermined that this is somebody we are buying players for. Why are you not there? And Thomas Tuchel says that, listen, my job is to make sure that activities on the football field are going on. My job is to make sure that there is a lot of coordination on the football field. The team is well managed, the team is well coached, the team is run properly. So when all of these circumstances happen, there was some sort of friction, and there was egos at play. And so the owners felt that, oh, okay, this was somebody who was not wholly sold on the project. So if you're listening to us on Tadi 99.1 FM, don't let anybody deceive you. Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea was not sacked because of football reasons. He was sacked because there were differentials in terms of ideologies and principles, and then subsequently it played out in terms of ego. So somebody had to take the fall, and Thomas Tuchel had to take the fall.
Yes, I was actually going into it. You've made a very good explanation to it. I was actually coming to compare it with Del Bosque and why he was sacked from Real Madrid after winning Champions League, after winning the league, and all of that, and he was sacked then. Now, with that of the sacking of, since you've given us a brief overview of whatever happened, after sacking Tuchel, and we were expecting, you see, Chelsea sacking and hiring managers is a normal thing, is a norm for them. But then the last time I was here and I spoke about the fact that every single manager that has been brought in to replace a Chelsea sacked manager has won something or had learned on the job at Chelsea. The only two who had not won something before but had learned on the job were, the Ghanaian former coach, Avram Grant and Di Matteo. Avram Grant was an assistant coach. Di Matteo was an assistant coach. And even when they were brought in, what did Avram Grant do? He was second in the league. He was at the Champions League final. With that of Di Matteo, he won the FA Cup and he won the Champions League. But then, at this time, when, Tuchel was sacked, we were expecting that, okay, you bring our favorite, Gusedeng will either come in, or maybe you bring another coach, because it was even early part of the season. So this was not the time to bring a coach to steer affairs, because it was just September. So we're expecting to bring an A-list coach. But the funny thing is that how many coaches were available? Zidane was not going to come. That was it. Conte has his feud with Chelsea. There was no way he was going to come. In fact, he was already at Tottenham. So they could not even think of Conte or anything. The other coaches that you could think about, none of them was available. You can't also say you are going to price Ancelotti or whoever from the club. So the first thing I was thinking was that it would have been probably a hasty decision to maybe bring in someone like Porter, just as it was done the other time. there was somebody who was understudying Tuchel. Unless Tuchel went with the whole staff, then everything would be done in a sequential order. Then a whole lot of things will be brought in. But you see, talking about the recruitment of the players, if our viewers are watching or listening, it is not that every club does not include the coaches. It is Tuchel's principle that he does not include himself. Manchester United is different. During the time of Ferguson, he had David Gill.
Yes.
He Ferguson himself would be involved. Even during Ten Hag's time.
I think that it's great a point you have raised. Then the issues are simple. Every club has a model.
A model.
Every club has
A model.
a particular working model that works fine for them.
Some clubs have coaches, some have managers.
Yes.
For Arsenal, when you become an Arsenal manager, it is not just, if we are supposed to bring the difference, the manager is not just about going to the pitch and maybe training with them. The players' welfare, recruitment of players, whatsoever, player contract, everything has to do with the manager. But with the Chelsea system, only a few coaches have been able to integrate themselves so much that someone like Jose Mourinho, when he came, you realize that he actually was a mainstay in negotiation.
Yeah.
He would voice out for you to know something like that. But Tuchel's, maybe the way he does system, because at Dortmund you have Hans-Joachim Watzke to do everything.
Yes.
So he would not go and tell. That is how the German system runs. You can't go and tell Hassan Salihamidzic that I want this player, bring the player to me. No. Even if the player is brought, there would have been a series of scouts they brought to you. You bring your opinion. It does not necessarily mean that because you say I want this player, it will be bought for you. There would be Oliver Kahn to talk about it. There would be Karl-Heinz Rummenigge to talk about it. Hassan himself will also be there. So I think he was in the known of the German model, that he does not want to get himself involved. Not that so that if anything happened, he trusts that, because when he was there was Granovskaya, he was there. There was Peter Cech, he was there. Even before these two, there was Michael Emenalo. Emenalo was there.
Yes.
Until he moved to PSG or so. Yes. So it's like Chelsea has always had those who help in recruitment. But when he came in, it's more like the American, you see, this man has brought in so many ideas that there was a time he was even suggesting that they play an all-star. Yeah. And an all-star for players. So at the end of the season, you bring your best. I don't know whether because of how small England is, whether they will do it north and south or east and west or whatever. But that is just on the low. But I think he was a novice in managing a club side. To be precise, the biggest, most well-invested, most well-watched league in the world. And arguably one of the biggest clubs in England. He shouldn't have thrown himself to be the one in charge of everything and made such decisions with very, very little information. Because his appointment meant that people like Marina had to leave because she was the handbag of Abramovich. Cech was not ready for this whole thing, so he had to just step back. I think he could have, I don't know if he tried speaking to these people about it, but the decision, not just in the appointment of Potter, but every other decision that has come afterwards, about 90% has really not helped. So I think the sacking of Potter, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. It's just like a train moving from one track to the other, not knowing that the track has been blocked at the other end and still hoping. That was what was happening. They were just living in hope, thinking that things would turn around. But this is not how Chelsea runs. But now the question that will be on everybody's lips is, where do they go from here?
Well, I think that's a major question that they need to know.
Because which coach is available?
For now, they've made Bruno Salter be in charge. The assistant manager is in charge. He'll be in charge of their 10 games in the EPL, and he'll be in charge of their quarterfinal Champions League pair against Real Madrid.
Will they do that magic deal? Because the funny thing is that whenever they sack their coach, At this time, during the champion, no, I wouldn't want you to nod your head
No,
off
the gods
in
do
this.
not. The gods do not.
No, no, no. In
strike
this belief,
three
listen.
times. The,
But
the
who
gods
knew Di
do not-
Matteo?
the gods do
No,
not.
who knew Di Matteo?
No, the gods
Nobody
do not.
knew
No,
him.
no, no,
He
no.
won 2 trophies.
Obviously,
no,
it
this
can
is Chelsea.
be-
This is a pendulum team.
Well,
you don't know where they swing.
Well, I don't think that Salto will do another Di
Di
Matteo.
Matteo.